Hello and welcome to the Tarkis Zone. Thank you for joining me. We're going to be looking at the game Crossout today, and what I figured I would do is wait about a week and a half after their major patch to give some sort of critique or review of the game after they did the patching. So what I'm going to really talk about in this video is that I think they've done a good job with the balancing. It could be. I would say that if 0 was the worst patch ever and 10 being the best patch in the world, I think this sits around an 8 or an 8.5. They kind of did what they were supposed to do in rebalancing some of these matches. But with that said, there are a few items in the game that are still a little OP, and they're only OP if they're coordinated. Meaning that, I guess what I would have to say is that it's hard to coordinate effort in this game because it seems like everybody is kind of free-for-alling it, just joining random games, and that's great. It's fun chaos. But when you get a coordination group effort, meaning a guild together with a bunch of honing drones, it can be a little OP, and it's really hard to find strategy against that unless you're on Discord or you're on your own voice chat system trying to coordinate with the people on your team, especially if you end up getting AI or bots on your team. It can be somewhat frustrating. But with that said, you're looking at maybe you could probably play, let's say you could play 50 games. You'll probably get maybe 4, 5 of those type of games out of those 50. So you're still looking at like a 45%, a 45 game where you'll enjoy yourself and feel like the game's balanced. Now, I would just want to show you my rig. This is my favorite rig. And the reason why I like running this rig is, I had some hand-eye coordination problems after a motorcycle accident years ago, and I have trouble sometimes with the first-person shooters. And if you're like me and never play a first-person shooter because you just have a disadvantage, your disadvantage is between the seat and the keyboard, not the game. It's hard to play first-person shooters, but with this rig, I can really enjoy this game and play this game for its full potential. And what I'm running is 2 aerial drones. I'm running one of those sidekick drones, and then I have one of those stationary drones underneath that. And if I hit test drive here, I like the speediness of it. And with this build, it's what I call an evade build. So never stop. Get your full speed and don't hit anything and do not slow down, and you'll be okay. Because when people start shooting at you, you can just do a serpentine, So I'm going to let go of the items that I'm carrying here. See, I've got the 2 aerial drones, I've got that stationary drone, and I've got that kickback drone that's running around. There he is. He's over here. So if you do it, try not to run into your own drones. If you do a serpentine kind of effect, you'll and you got to watch out. Sometimes I take corners too aggressively. Well, you see, what you're also seeing here is they're stripping off my heads, or I guess I don't know what you call that stuff. It's reputation gain decor, basically. And let me show you that. I'm going to hit escape here. See, I've got these heads around my vehicle. They actually play a big role in my survivability, because each one can strip off, a 500 damage hit. You know what I mean? Because the damage is going to come in, it strips that off, and it leaves the back panel alone. So it's almost like I've got an invisible shield around my vehicle that can take at least one hit before it gets stripped off, and then they start working on my rig. So it works out great. But it also works out that my reputation gains, as you can see in the lower right-hand corner here, are 34%, 12%, because I'm running that banner. So the games alone can score me uber reputation, especially when you're trying to grind your levels in the factions. So I'm trying to keep them all balanced. So what I do is I'll run a few couple days worth of games with one faction, then another. I just like to try to keep it balanced. It's working out for me. Now, again, with this build, what I try to focus on is base pushing, meaning that you look for an opportunity, a hole in their ranks to get to their base and put pressure on them. And then once they come squirreling in, you release your drones and get out of dodge. Because your drones have to have a recycle time, so you'll be vulnerable for a little while. But if you do your what I call, if you were to be in a fighter ship or a fighter jet and you're strafing the battlefield, where you're dropping bombs, you circling around and dropping bombs. That's similar to what this rig is doing. It's got its vulnerabilities, so you just got to understand that during the times where you're vulnerable, you want to be in areas of combat that nobody can actually hurt you. And you're going to ask yourself, how really effective is this build, Tarkis? Well, I played today, and here is my history. Okay, I think most of these are today's games. These are all today's games. There's 10 games here, and it looks like I lost 4 games. All right? So it's got great playability. And the thing is, you might say, oh, maybe you aren't uber teams to get those victories. Actually, after telling you about the balancing stuff, it is balanced. It seems to be well balanced. And, it is what it is. And the other thing about it is a video I just did a little while ago. I showed my MVP scores. I mean, I'm still just rocking the MVPs. I got up to 141 now. And basically, primary, this is a rig that I run. This is my preferred rig. I can really do some good damage. I think I fall within the 1 through 4. It all depends on situational. Sometimes I'll think I've got an opening to the base, and they'll close ranks on me and just destroy me. And I got to score 10. There are games that are like that with this rig. It's just the more you play this rig, the more you'll get better at it, understanding where your opportunities are, what you can do. And the key is always stay moving. Once you stop, you're done. You're dead. They'll just light you up. You got to go in, drop your drones, do serpentine out, maybe strafe them one more time because your aerial drones are still activated, and then you get out of dodge. And basically, what I try to do when I'm getting out of dodge is push their base. During the spot where my drones are recharging, I'll push pressure on their base. And hopefully that will cause their ranks to thin out, which will help my team overall. And I think I've won many, many games where I just pushed their base, and I won the game by just capping it. Because none of the enemy came back to stop me from capping it. And I'd get like a flawless, and I'll get like the 300 score. Okay, because I just basically capped their base. So that's what I like about this rig. It's fast, it's sleek, and the thing about it is you don't really need to do that much coordination on your end other than driving and understanding where your situational gains will be. That's the key with this build. Well, I want to thank you for joining me. This has been the Tarkis Zone.